So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time. Now, needless to say that you have to revise this lecture just after watching it. Because if you'll just watch this lecture, then these current affairs would quickly skip your memory. So you have to solidify them in your memory, and that can be done by revising these lectures just after watching them. Now, you can revise this lecture by taking a look at the notes provided by us on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. All right, then, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into the lecture. Okay, so daily current affairs, 25th of November, Tuesday, and here is the list of topics that we shall cover today. Okay. So topic number 1 is India and France to jointly make Hammer missile, the missile that was used in Operation Sindoor. Okay, so we'll talk about this. Then, well, in the recent Red Fort blasts that occurred in Delhi, well, IEDs, improvised explosive devices, were used. Now, the former DG of police has not generally said, but he has made a point that India needs to create a national IED policy as to why these terrorists get their hands on IED devices that quickly. So we need a proper IED policy so that it becomes very difficult for terrorists to get IEDs. So we'll talk about this issue. Then, well, G20 Leaders Summit was recently concluded, okay, in Johannesburg, South Africa. And over there, the Leaders Summit adopted a declaration. So we will quickly take a look at what was said in the Leaders Summit and the declaration, okay? What has G20 decided? And in the end, we'll talk about this Hayli Gubbi volcanic eruption, which erupted in Ethiopia. And this volcano was a dormant volcano. It was dormant for 12,000 years, but it recently erupted and caused a lot of problems, including India also. Okay, so these are the 4 topics. So the first topic is related to science and technology, defense component of science and technology portion of your UPSC syllabus. Second topic is related to internal security portion of your UPSC syllabus. Third topic is related to international relations portion. And fourth topic is related to geography environment portion of your UPSC syllabus. Okay, so these are the 4 topics that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one, starting with topic number 1, and that is India, France to jointly make Hammer missile. Now, Hammer missile is a precision guided missile that is fired from airplanes and it attacks assets, enemy assets on ground. That is why it is known as air to ground or air to surface missile. Now, this missile is highly precise, okay, and it is manufactured by France. Now, during the Ladakh standoff between India and China, well, India quickly procured these Hammer missiles for its Rafale fighter jets, because these missiles are best compatible with Rafale jets. Rafale jets are also manufactured in France, and these Hammer missiles are also manufactured in France. That is why these missiles are best compatible with Rafale jets. And we used these missiles in Operation Sindoor as well. Now, India wants to use these missiles in other jets also, like Tejas and other jets. For that, India needs to make this missile itself and understand its source code and its technicalities. So that is why this project between India and France to jointly manufacture Hammer missiles is going to be extremely significant for India. It's a big boost to Make in India as well as indigenization of defense in India. So let's talk about this entire topic and we'll also get to the technical details of Hammer missile. Okay, so let's begin. India, France to jointly make Hammer. So what was in the news? Bharat Electronics Limited, BEL, which is an Indian PSU, and Safran Electronics and Defense, France, have signed a joint venture cooperation agreement to produce Hammer precision-guided weapons in India. They'll be manufactured in India. The JV company, the joint company between the two, will be a private limited firm with 50-50 shareholding between BEL and SED, targeting the needs of Indian Air Force and Indian Navy. Okay, now this is how this missile looks. Advanced air-to-surface missile, Hammer missile. Now let's gather some technical details about Hammer missile. So Hammer, the full form is Highly Agile Modular Munition Extended Range, is a SMART. That means it is smart precision guided. That means it can automatically locate its target. All-weather air-to-ground weapon, also described as a glide bomb. Now, the question is, what is a glide bomb? You see, there is a reason why Hammer missile can only be fired from a fighter jet. Why? because when fighter jet is flying at very high speeds, and in that speed it releases the missile, the speed of the missile is basically an addition of fighter jet speed as well as the missile speed, because the missile is being carried by the fighter jet at very high speeds. So this high speed is added to the missile speed. Now, such kind of bombs are called glide bombs. So you carry them on a fighter jet and they glide past the fighter jet. Okay, that is why it is called glide bomb. You understand? Approximate range of up to 70 kilometer and can be mated with standard 250 kg bomb also. It can carry 500 kg, even 1 ton of bombs. Okay, so it's quite flexible. Any type of payload is permissible. And what are the features? It's highly accurate. It is really accurate. Okay, modular, can be attached to anything. Difficult to intercept. That is why Pakistan was unable to intercept these missiles. Capable of penetrating fortified structures like the Markaz and all these terrorist establishments in Operation Sindoor, and resistant to jamming, and can be launched from low altitude on rough terrain. So these are some high class features. Now, India had earlier procured hammer weapons from France via the emergency procurement route in 2020 to quickly equip Rafale jets during Ladakh standoff with China to prepare itself, because India initially procured these missiles for China, but they were used on Pakistan. Nonetheless, that was the thing. Now, what are the advantages of this deal? What is the main significance of this joint venture? Significance for India. So let's talk about this. First, it will give a big boost to Make in India. Then, indigenization of defense. Okay, India needs to develop its own military industrial complex. Okay, because today India is heavily import dependent when it comes to weapons. India wants to reduce its dependency on imports for weapons. So this is a good step in that particular direction of indigenization of defense. Then it will deepen Indo-France cooperation. Plus, if India will manufacture this missile on its own, India will understand its nitty-gritties. So India can use these missiles on other fighter jets as well, on other platforms as well. So this missile won't be restricted to Rafale jets alone. So this is a big thing for India. Okay, so these are the significant points that you should remember as far as this deal is concerned. Okay, that's about it. Now let's quickly shift our focus to second news item, and that is National IED Policy. Now, IED is an explosive device. Okay, the full form of IED is improvised explosive device, and this is the choice weapon for terrorists. Okay, because it is easy to manufacture, easy to make this kind of bomb. Plus, the materials required for making this bomb are also easily available. That is why the first choice for any terrorist organization is IED. But government of India should make it really difficult for terrorists or criminals to procure these devices, right? And for that reason, government needs to develop its very own national IED policy, through which it becomes really difficult for terrorists and criminals to create an IED device for causing maximum damage. Now, to understand this point about national IED policy, you need to understand what IEDs are. So let's talk about this, okay? We'll talk about the finer details of IEDs, okay? So National IED Policy. So what was in the news? IED in many ways is an embodiment of collective darkness of human psyche encased in a mid-sized container. It can maim, kill, traumatize complete strangers with impunity. IEDs are the preferred weapons of choice for terrorists of multiple hues. Almost all terrorists have capability in producing IED devices, including the recent Red Fort blast. Now let's understand the technical details about IED devices. What kind of material is used, what is a detonator, what is a container, all the components of IED as well. Okay, so let's talk. So about IEDs. So an improvised explosive device is a non-standard explosive device assembled from readily available materials. That is why terrorists use it, because it can be created from readily available materials. The materials that are used to make IEDs are dual-use materials. They are used for other purposes as well. Okay, but they can be used to make a bomb as well. Okay, for example, ammonium nitrate. Now, ammonium nitrate is a fertilizer, but it can be used to make IED devices also. It would be very difficult for government to keep a track on who procured ammonium nitrate. A terrorist posing as a farmer can procure ammonium nitrate and then use it not for fertilizers, but use it for making bombs. So that is why it is difficult and the first choice for terrorists. Components of IED. So it contains a container in which the bomb would be placed, power source, battery through which the bomb would be triggered, initiator, the fuse, the ignition, detonator. Okay, initiator or detonator, one and the same thing. Switch, explosive, the bomb. Enhancements like ball bearings and nails to increase the damage. Okay. Now, how is the bomb triggered? Well, it can be triggered through remote control, command operated, through timer, there are time bombs as well, through victim operated suicide bombs, okay, or suicide cars. You basically start a car, get out of it, and that car contains a bomb. So all these mechanisms are available in IEDs. Now, what kind of explosives are used in IEDs? Okay, what kind of bomb material is used? Now, IED is not just used by terrorists, it is also used by mining companies. Okay, based on the type of explosive that is used, well, we classify IEDs into three categories: military grade bomb, commercial, and homemade mixes. Okay, this is the hardest to regulate. Military grade IEDs contain TNT, RDX. Okay, commercial grade used by mining companies, dynamite, slurry, emulsion. And then if the government has been really strict, okay, really strict, so that it becomes very difficult for terrorists to get TNT, RDX, then terrorists find novel ways to produce IED. They used homemade mixtures like ANFO, ammonium nitrate fuel oil. Okay, ANFO, ammonium nitrate fuel oil, with some other chemicals that are required for ammonium nitrate to be explosive. And that can be a homemade bomb. Okay, this is a challenge. How to keep track of homemade mixtures. Okay, now, what are the problems in India? Why do terrorists in India choose IED? Surely, it is a little bit easier for terrorists to make IED bombs in India. Now, what is the problem? What is the problem in India's policy? First of all, the material to make IEDs sometimes gets infiltrated through cross-border smuggling, okay, or through cross-border drones also. So this is a problem. BSF has to be active over here. Then, domestic production. India is the largest producer of detonator for commercial IEDs. Okay. Now, because of that, well, you have a lot of detonators available. Okay. And sometimes government is unable to keep a track of who is buying these detonators. Yes, government keeps a track. Only licensed mining companies can buy these detonators. But there is sometimes some problems. Okay. Not proper enforcement is done. So this is a problem. Slippage of commercial explosive detonators. Okay. They slip through. Then availability of precursor chemicals like ammonium nitrate, the fertilizer, which can be bought by a terrorist posing as a farmer. So government needs a proper regulation in this area as well. Simple. Okay. Now, what should be the way forward? Well, the article says that India needs a national IED policy, right? What should that policy look like? What is the way forward so that it becomes really difficult for terrorists to gather or make IED devices? So this is the way forward. Need for a holistic national counter IED policy integrating strategic and tactical responses, delineating roles across stakeholders. So every government official should have a role. Okay. Strengthening data-driven forensics through National Bomb Data Center. So National Bomb Data Center is the nodal agency which has all the information. It has basically expertise with respect to bombs. Okay. So this is required. Then priority measures. These measures should be conducted right now. Even if you don't have an IED policy, do this. Tighter end-use auditing of commercial explosives. Government should do regular inspection as to who is buying this. Improve last-mile monitoring. Enhance border and drone surveillance because to stop cross-border smuggling of materials. Precursor chemical control. Precursor chemicals along with ammonium nitrate. You have to check who is buying this. With reporting thresholds and capacity building in investigation. Okay. And you can also use technology and community support. Make people aware so that if someone is buying ammonium nitrate from a nearby area, well, an aware citizen can report it to the authorities. So counter drone systems, supply chain digitization, community policing can reduce access and improve early detection without over-regulating legitimate industry. Okay, because IEDs can be required by legitimate industry also. So this is the way forward. Okay, that's about it as far as the second topic is concerned. Now let's quickly shift our focus to third news item, and that is G20 Leaders Declaration. So G20, we all know about it because India also a couple of years back hosted its own G20 summit. Okay, so this time around G20 summit is being conducted in Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, after the end of every leader summit, G20 leader summit, well, there is a declaration that is adopted by G20 members. Now, this time around, the declaration that is adopted contains so many points with respect to international financial reforms, enhanced role for Africa in international politics, climate change, development finance. So, all these points are mentioned. All these important decisions were taken in this leader summit. Now, the article that we are discussing basically was titled 10 key takeaways from leadership summit of G20. So 10 key takeaways. So what are these 10 key takeaways? Let's quickly talk about this. By the way, I won't be discussing what G20 is because we have covered it ample number of times. Okay, we'll just focus on this declaration. Okay, so let's quickly talk about it. So G20 Leaders Declaration. So what was in the news? This was the 20th G20 summit held in Africa, Johannesburg, November 22 to 23. The declaration referenced Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an African word for interconnectedness, okay, in social, economic, and environmental contexts. So, well, this summit said that we need to get more in touch with Ubuntu, interconnectedness. Summit included significant steps to enhance Africa's voice, including a 25th chair for Sub-Saharan Africa at IMF Executive Board. So IMF is run by Board of Directors, Executive Board of Directors. They are 24 in number. Well, Africa is demanding one more Board of Director that represents Sub-Saharan Africa, so that Africa has a stake in decision making of IMF. And IMF is important, okay, for global financial stability. So that is the thing, okay. Now, there are different topics on which this declaration had an opinion, okay. So first they said something about, this declaration said something about financial reforms. So over 100 billion in voluntary channeling of special drawing rights. As you all know, IMF works in special drawing rights, okay. Now, whenever IMF gives loans to any country, it is given in special drawing rights. So donate 100 billion special drawing rights so that it can be given to any country in need, developing country in need. Okay, this was done. Then commitment to quota-based, well-funded IMF structure. Currently, it is said that IMF's governance structure is biased in favor of developed countries. That should be done away with. Then renewed focus on G20 common framework, promoting debt for climate, debt for development swaps, voluntary liability management, basically enhancing credit availability to developing countries so that they can develop. Okay. Then climate change. Declaration calls for strengthening Paris Agreement and investing in disaster risk reduction. Push for universal coverage of early warning system. Now, every country, depending on how advanced it is in science and technology, well, they create their own early warning system. G20 Leaders Summit has said that early warning systems should be available to all nations because disasters impact all nations. So there is a call for that. Then it said something about energy, equity, and critical minerals. Okay, 600 million Africans lack electricity. So do something about this. Then it welcomes World Bank's Mission 300. It is a platform to connect 300 million Africans to power, electricity by 2030. So G20 endorsed this Mission 300. So remember this term Mission 300. A prelims question can be asked, okay, which is of World Bank and African Development Bank, AFDB. Endorsement of G20 critical minerals framework. We have talked about critical minerals. Critical minerals are important for environmental technologies, green technologies, and many others, electric vehicles. So basically, G20 has a framework for this so that more access can be given to developing countries. So do something on this. Then they said something about food security, employment, and multilateralism, governance on AI, and United Nations Security Council reforms. Basically, IBSA group, India, Brazil, South Africa. They have called for expanding permanent membership of United Nations Security Council, and all three countries are staking their claim for a permanent seat at United Nations Security Council. They are demanding UNSC reforms. So these were endorsed by Leader Summit's declaration. Okay. Now, this topic contains information which you have to remember. You don't have to understand because not much is there to understand, but you have to cram it a little. So do that from the notes available on Telegram channel. Okay. So do read this topic from the notes. All right. And now let's quickly shift our focus to last news item of the day, and that is Hayli Gubbi volcanic eruption. Now, there was a dormant volcano in Ethiopia. Okay, it was dormant for 12,000 years. 12,000 years. Maybe during the Ice Age, it erupted the last time. It was silent for 12,000 years, but it recently erupted. And through that eruption, a lot of smoke, ash, and dust was thrown up in the air. There was so much dust and ash that was thrown up in the air that ash traveled across the Arabian Sea and even entered Gujarat, Rajasthan, India, and is on its way to China. In fact, this smoke and ash was so dense that it disrupted many commercial flights also. Many Indian flights to Europe or the Arab world had to basically reroute because this ash or dust, well, blinded the aircraft. Okay, so this was a huge deal. Commercial flights got grounded, and this dust is also traveling over India and on its way to China. So it's a big thing. So what would be our focus? First of all, we need to talk about this volcano, and then we'll talk about volcanic ash that is released during a volcanic eruption. How significant it is, and does it cause any environmental damage or human health damage? We'll talk about volcanic ash. So the focus for this news item would be on volcanic ash. Okay, so let's quickly discuss this. So Hayli Gubbi volcanic eruption. So Hayli Gubbi volcano in northeastern Ethiopia erupted on Sunday, marking its first known eruption in about 12,000 years. The eruption was explosive, ejecting a high-altitude plume of volcanic ash, gases, and fine particulate matter without significant lava or magma flows. So this volcano erupted, but not much lava was released. This volcanic ash was released in large quantities. Along with volcanic ash, there were sulfuric and nitrous oxides, okay, gases, and fine, very small particulate matter. Now, the thing is that in Ethiopia, the air was warm. Okay, the volcanic ash would be warm, and warm air has a tendency to rise up. Okay, so because this volcano erupted, it is hot. These hot gases and volcanic ash, they rose up 10 to 12 kilometers in altitude. Okay, and from that height, it started traveling eastwards towards India, China. Okay, so first basically the ash, it rose in height. Okay, at higher altitudes, it started traveling eastwards. Clear? This was the volcanic eruption. Volcano erupts after 12,000 years. Okay, so it rose in height and then traveled eastwards. Now, about volcanic plume. Plume basically cloud of gas. The plume rose between 15 to 40 kilometer altitude at that height in stratosphere basically, due to heated air becoming lighter and ascending rapidly, carrying fine ash particles and gases like sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. Heavier particles settled locally in Ethiopia only, but finer particles travel long distances due to strong air currents. There are strong air currents in the upper reaches of the atmosphere. Okay, strong westerlies are blowing in the upper reaches of the atmosphere, which carried this in the east direction. The ash cloud moved westward across India, entering from Gujarat and Rajasthan, passing over Delhi, UP, and is expected to reach China very soon. Okay. Now, what is the impact of such a volcanic eruption? Basically, are there any environmental or human health harms because of this volcanic ash? Okay. So volcanic plume impacts are short-lived. The ash particles disperse and wash out because of rainfall within days. Okay. Gaseous emissions like SO2, CO2 persist for long. Okay. The ash gets dissipated or rainfall occurs and it falls. But these gases stay in the atmosphere for a little longer. But the amount of SO2 or CO2 that is released is negligible when it comes to the amount of SO2 or CO2 that is present in the atmosphere already. So not much change is made. The plume posed no direct threat to humans. Why? Because humans don't live 10 to 15 kilometers above the earth. Okay, so this ash went 10 to 15 kilometers above the earth. So no problem for humans. But caused significant hazards to commercial aviation, commercial flights. All right. That would be all. So with that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it will add more value if you're consistent and regular with this lecture series and you revise it from the notes provided by us. So in the hope that you're going to do that, I shall see you next time with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.